All right, we're joined again by Jim Ellis, Peter Schiff, and Lachman Achetan to continue our conversation. Obviously, Bob Nardelli making his case for the bailout, for a loan to the auto industry. Jim, let's start with you. What's your view on where this is?
In a word, yes or no? Do they get a bailout
Verdict.
or no?
In a word, yes. I mean, there's a political dimension here. I mean, we can talk about whether from an economic standpoint this is wise or not, but let's face it, this is a decision that's going to be made in Washington. And even though we're talking about $34 billion in the world of what we've given away over the last couple of months, we are talking about a rounding error. And also a rounding error that has quite a lot of legislators who would like to see this happen, even though the public polls lately have sort of moved against it. But if you look at dealerships alone, you're talking about employment in a lot of towns around this country that probably does go more than 500,000. So a lot of people want to keep their jobs
Peter
there.
Schiff, just because we've already spent an awful lot of money, does it mean that it's right to spend more money?
No. I mean, my mother always taught me that two wrongs don't make a right. We shouldn't have bailed out Wall Street. We shouldn't bail out Detroit. And it's going to cost the economy a lot more than the cost of the bailout, which is going to be a lot more than the politicians think. We're going to run into the hundreds of millions to prop these companies up. But the real cost is the damage to the economy that we do, because by propping it up, what are we destroying? What jobs are going to be destroyed? What companies are going to fail so that these can stay in business?
Jim made the point, and a lot of these congressmen have been making the point that there are dealerships across the country and there are plants. Lachman, let's talk about around the country, and let's talk about, you've got a map that you can show us how things have changed.
Sure. Well, I mean, basically, as this recession has taken hold, job losses have gone from the coast and they've squeezed into the middle of the country. And this is how a recession works. It becomes more and more pervasive.
When you look back at January, for instance, it looked like
it was pretty mild.
Yeah, I mean,
you have a sea of blue, and we have
the red is the red of the problem areas.
The red of the problem areas, and it's no mystery that California is in trouble, and they're really screaming right now.
And you can see Michigan was in trouble back then.
Yeah, these are the ones that were on the early edge of it. Yeah. And then as the recession has taken hold over the course of the year, you've seen job losses just really cover the map.
Let's advance that to October.
And so you see they're squeezing in. I think we're having a little bit of a delayed holdout in the middle of the country from the commodity bubble, both farm prices and oil prices. But basically, the recession has fully gripped this country, and you're seeing that in the latest data. There is a very pervasive job loss. It's regional and it's industry-wide. And this is what a recession is. And so in the middle of that, right, ideological arguments that have merit aside, do you want to put a slug of people out of work right there? And if you do, you are going to go from what's a severe recession. People act surprised by this number today. I mean, get over it. If you look at the forward numbers, they're going to get a lot worse.
The thing is, people are going to get put out of work. There's nothing we can do about it. But what government policy is doing now is making sure that there's no new jobs waiting for them. We have to let the market work. We can't think that we can centrally plan the economy and have the bureaucrats in Washington trying to figure out how to run the economy, how to make this whatever green economy, how to micromanage the auto industry. It's never worked. It didn't work in the Soviet Union.
All of that is a nice discussion before you get into a severe global recession.
Tell me about it. Jim started by saying this is ultimately going to be a decision made in Washington. Yeah. American people would like to know whether the government can help or will help.
Well, the government undoubtedly can help. The question is whether they are going to want to, sort of shoulder the financial burden that goes with that.
With what money?
And I have a feeling that the same way that the government has come in and come up with really innovative ways to pump money into the financial system to make sure we have a banking system, they're going to say that something like manufacturing still does matter in the U.S. It's very difficult to imagine a modern society that's a leader society and economically that doesn't have a manufacturing base.
That's a point that Peter's going to agree with you
Well,
on.
we're going to have to do it, but the solution is we have to save our money. Remember, he's talking about we need spending. When you're overweight, the solution isn't that you eat more.
Right.
When you're broke, the solution isn't to spend more. If we're going to have manufacturing in this country, we have to stop spending money. We need savings to supply the capital.
If people don't spend.
No, we'll have a real economy. Now we have a phony economy.
Some of the excesses have already been corrected. Right. You've had home prices coming down. You've had a lot of jobs lost. You're already having some of that creative destruction already happening.
Yeah. Remember, spending is not an economy.
We got to leave it there, guys. But listen,
Peter
brings up a very good question that I think we've got to get to, and that is, where do you get the money? We borrow the money. We don't have the money, and that is a very good point, and that's part of this whole equation.
Do we have a webcast that goes on during the commercial break?
How do we pay it back?
We should. If we had an imaginary webcast that went on during the commercial break,
all right,
you could have
you guys all have questions. We have answers and a lot more questions. How to keep your